Alright, in our next example, we see that it's a bit more complex for a couple of reasons. First, we see that our index is 3, so we have a cube root. And then also we see that on the left side, we no longer have just one radical. So we're going to have to now do that process of isolating the radical, whereas before it was always given to us in that way. So the first thing that we want to do to start solving this problem is I do want to isolate this radical. I want the only thing on the left side in this case to be this right here. Alright, so to get rid of this plus 5, I'm going to do minus 5. I'm just going to bring it over to the other side. So we get cube root of x plus 1 equals, and 3 minus 5 is negative 2. Okay? Alright, so let's go ahead and now start raising. Let's use the power rule. We're going to raise both sides to some exponent. Now be careful here. Before we always did a square, we always raised it to the power of 2 because our index was 2, but now our index is 3. So we're going to raise everything to the power of 3. Okay? So a cube root cubed, that cancels out. Okay? And we're left with what's inside the radical, which is x plus 1. Alright, now negative 2 cubed, that would be a negative 2 times a negative 2 times another negative 2. So we get negative 8. Alright, and now we're going to just continue solving. We're going to subtract both sides. So we get x equals negative 9. Okay. Now let's go ahead and check it. We can't circle that as our final answer until we check. So we're going to check x equals negative 9. So the cube root of, and where I see an x, I'm going to plug in a negative 9 plus 1, and we're going to, whoops, actually the original problem has plus 5. And we're going to see, does that equal 3? Alright, so don't be alarmed by this negative inside the radical because we're dealing with an odd index. Alright, so we can get negatives when we have odd indexes like 3, 5, 7, and so on. So negative 9 plus 1 gives us negative 8. So we have the cube root of negative 8, and hopefully by now this that is looking familiar. Alright, so the cube root of negative 8 is negative 2. If we did negative 2 3 times, by its, multiply by itself 3 times, we get a negative 8. So we have negative 2 plus 5. Still we're checking. So what's negative 2 plus 5? Well, that's positive 3. So this does check out. Alright, so that means that this is our final answer. Alright. Let's take a look at another example, and then we have a word problem left. And that's going to be the very last thing that we do. Okay, so this one, getting a little bit more complex again, so every time we want to get a little bit more challenging. So the square root of 2x plus 5 plus the square root of 2x, all on the same side, equals 3. Alright, so in this case, we have 2 radicals on the left side. We only want to have one radical on one side. That's how we isolate it. Only one radical is on at least one of the sides. Okay? So what we need to do is we need to move this one. Or you could technically, don't move this one. This one's more complex. I would move the simpler one. So do minus radical 2x. Alright, and then we're going to have 2x plus 5 is equal to 3 minus radical 2x. Alright, and now you can see we have on the left side only one radical. Okay, so let's go ahead and start solving now that that's isolated. So I'm going to put parentheses around the left side, and now put parentheses around the entire binomial that's on the right side. The index here is 2, so we're going to raise both sides by a power of 2. Alright, so these cancel out, and we're left with 2x plus 5. And then here, this is just a binomial squared. Now it looks a little weird because there's a radical in it. So let's go ahead and just do that multiplication real quick. So I have 3 minus radical 2x times another 3 minus radical 2x. So again, this is just a bunch of distribution. Alright, so 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times negative radical 2x is negative 3 radical 2x. Negative radical 2x times 3 is another negative 3 radical 2x. And then negative radical 2x times another negative radical 2x. Well, two negatives make a positive. And then 2x times 2x is 4x squared. And this can be simplified, right? That just equals 2x. Alright, so let's go ahead and combine our like terms. We have 9. These two are like terms because they have the same index and the same radicand, so I can do negative 3 minus 3, which is a negative 6. And then I have a positive 2x. So that's what I have on the right side. Okay. So let's go ahead and continue combining our like terms. I know this looks kind of ugly right now, right? It's not what we really want to see, but it's going to get better. So let's go ahead and do minus 2x. And we have 5 equals 9 minus 6 radical 2x, and these canceled out as well. And then I'm going to do minus, actually, let's do this because we have a radical here. We're going to end up having to isolate that. So instead of minus 5, I'm actually going to do minus 9. I'm going to bring the integers over to this side. I'm going to do minus 9 and minus 9. Let me just adjust my camera so that we have more space here. Alright, so 5 minus 9 is negative 4. We have equals negative 6 radical 2x. So this negative 6 is multiplying the radical. So I can divide both sides by a negative 6. Right, those cancels. These negatives cancel. 4 over 6 is 2/3. Alright, and now we have a radical again. And so we're going to use our power rule one more time. We're going to take the index and we're going to use it as our exponent. Those cancel out. So 2/3 squared is 4 over 9. And then because the radical canceled out, we have 2x. Alright, so here, to get x by itself, we're going to divide by 2. Just remember that dividing by 2 is the same as multiplying by 1/2. And the reason that I say that is because it's going to be easier to take this fraction and multiply it by 1/2 than to divide it by 2. Just looks weird when you put a big division sign over it. So let's go ahead and do times 1/2 times 1/2. So those cancel. It technically equals 1. We end up with x on that side, so we end up with 4 over 18. Alright. Okay, so let's go ahead and check our work. I have a feeling I did something wrong. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I didn't do anything wrong. I just have to simplify this. Right, 4 over 18, both of those are divisible by, oh, I'm sorry, you guys can't see that well. 4 over 18, both of those are divisible by 2. So x equals 2 over 9. Alright, so we need to check that. And you might say, I don't want to check that because it has fractions. Well, we can just use our calculator. So let's try that. Alright, so the original problem is up here. So we have the square root of 2 times x, and remember our x is 2/9, so I'm going to do 2 divided by 9 plus 5, right? Now I need to get out of the radical because I need to do plus, but outside of it, so I'm going to use the right arrow, and that will bring me over to the right. So I have plus outside of it, then I have another square root, which is 2 times x again, which is 2/9, so 2 divided by 9. And don't write equals 3, you're just going to check and see if it equals 3. It does equal 3. Perfect. Alright, so checking it on the calculator worked out. Alright, so what that means is that x equals 2/9 is the correct final answer.